All right, Holiness YouTube and also Facebook Live. It's on and popping again. It's a little early in the morning. I got some stuff to do today, but I wanted to make sure that we really get to this. Now, you know the drill. My main camera is here. That's going to YouTube high resolution. The YouTube Live is right here, so you know where my eyes are going, or the Facebook Live is right here. So I want to jump right into this because obviously there's a lot to cover, and I want to do that in the shortest period of time and let you get on about your day. The main thing that I want to express first is learning versus reacting. Today you're going to learn some stuff, this common sense that I keep talking about, which many are going to perceive as some level of prophecy, but it's just common sense. But again, learning versus reacting, you're actually going to learn something. So it doesn't mean that you got to jump into the whole emotional bag and melt down and start going through the same thing that I'm going to discuss is not what you should be doing today. But also, this is not time for you to stick your head in the sand and act like, you know, you're just going to ignore what's happening in reality, because it actually has a lot to do with you. It has a lot to do with what you can get out of all of this experience on earth and how you take yourself to the next level. So let's go ahead and start this. And the first thing that I want to say is that this is about how to read the occultism going on in the reality. And as I said, a lot of people will see this as prophecy because you'll know exactly what's going to happen next. But again, it's just reading the signs of the times. Like if you could look at the sky and you see clouds and you see the overcast, you know it's about to rain. So you could do that same thing with this reality and determining what's about to happen next. And this allows you to position yourself perfectly to be able to utilize these currents in order to propel yourself to where you need to go. So as we always do, we're going to first start off with the occult side of what's actually happening, what's generally hidden, the mysticism. And obviously I talked about within my last two recordings, my recent recordings, about this milking. I'm calling it Illuminati milking. And what I mean by this is this milking of the reality to when people are charging up their energy, then that energy is then harvested from them. And just recently you had this total solar eclipse. And you had pretty much half of the world staring up at the sun. And anyone who knows about sun gazing knows that the sun can actually charge you. We're beings that are made out of also magnesium. We do have our own level of photosynthesis. This is why you tan. This is why you get vitamin D. This is why UV rays are beneficial to you. Certain ranges in the UV spectrum are benefit to you. Are a benefit to you. So this shows you that there is some photosynthesis that goes on with the body. But again, study sun gazing if you need to know more about that. So you had half of the world sun gazing and charging themselves up off of two energies, a lunar energy and a solar energy, and actually meeting some balance. So in this case, you're looking at some of the most useful energy for the body is when you can get the sun and the moon overlaying each other. Okay, so the entire or half of the world did that, and they charged themselves up off of this kind of energy. And then right after that, now they're going to start the process. The first part of the process was, of course, there was the Mayweather and McGregor scenario, which is basically the black versus white scenario cooking up. So they could go ahead and begin the milking process. And obviously you had billions of dollars, at least to the tune of $3 billion, just wasted on a so-so fight of where someone pretty much breaks all the rules of boxing. How can you go from basically never even boxing before to boxing the best guy in boxing? Like all of those, all of the structure that's around boxing is like golden gloves. You got to get up, you got to get a certain level, and before you can even fight certain people, right? So this is just showing you, again, they'll go to any extent. There's no rules really in this. And so anyway, that was the first round of it. And then I told everyone, I said, now, since that's going to be over with, they're going to need to jump back into something else because we're getting ready to go into full moon. We're progressively waxing. And that's something else I said was going to be another scenario with Korea. North Korea. Sure enough, on Tuesday, North Korea supposedly launches another missile. There's no real footage of seeing this missile go over Japan. You think some people would be out there with their cell phones like, ah! But you don't see that. And that's why I was saying, like, North Korea is starting to look to me more like a huge Hollywood set, especially with the pictures that they keep showing over and over again. It's like when you do photography and you do videography and you see some of the shots that are shot, you have to ask yourself, well, who's even shooting that shot? How would the U.S. even get to that shot? It's like they just, send this stuff right over when they're done doing their PR stuff. So pay attention to what's going on, but most people aren't. So I'm going to demystify a lot of things. Now, first of all, again, this occult media milking is actually going on because you have high-level occultists actually operating the media channels. And because the media channels control the current in the world, not only the money, not only the profits, not only the prophecy, what's going to happen, all those things are controlled through the media channels. So there's a constant wrestling for these media channels. And everyone knows that the Khazarian Jewish Kagans actually own most of the media channels. And then they're constantly beefing with the Germanic, old school, basically Nazis that are for this vying for control of the world. And this is how it's playing out. And these two have diametrically opposed themselves to each other. So this is why when Trump is complaining about this fake news, it's because they want to control the current, but they know media is stronger than them in controlling the current. So they got to try to guide it into their direction. And this is why they got involved in Hollywood and, you know, all the different things that Trump has been involved with, reality TV, etc. So I'm just working to let you see the connection between Hollywood and the connection between the government, Ronald Reagan, etc. But even deeper than that, if you notice, like if you understand the Kabbalah, this CNN, which is basically the news channel, if you realize that this CNN is actually a Kabbalistic code. And in the Kabbalah, there's no vowels. So CNN, any occultist knows, actually represents Canaan. Okay? And this is actually for, you know, I guess maybe the people who are a little bit more up on knowledge in the New Age, this is the land of the Anunnaki. Okay? Now, how deep this actually goes is that this is about a war that has been waged since the beginning of when this supposedly civilization starts. If you really look at the Sumerian text, it's actually an account of someone, in many texts, there's an account of someone who's actually prisoner in Samaria. And these later on become the biblical texts. And that's why when they switch the story, it's easy to carry on that same, oh, we're prisoners, like they say, oh, we're prisoners of Egypt, because it's the same story re-rolled with different characters on different sides. So what you have going on in Canaan is a war that actually stemmed from another constellation. If that constellation overlays ours, like it's a hyperdimensional reality. But this was a situation that went on in Orion. And this situation actually involves two parties. One of those parties are known as the Mar, and the other party is known as the Yaz. And the Els came way later on. They're more like the children of this particular group, these groups. And now this is basically duality at its best. Mar generally means water, as in marine or marina, and then Ya means fire. Okay? And these, even the terms that were used with the gods like Yahweh and etc. were known to be battle cries of Orion. And like even when in karate, when you use that force of fire, it's like Hi-ya! All right, so there's a lot of power in these vibrations. And I'm not telling you one is good and one is evil. I'm just trying to put you, I'm not trying, but I'm putting you up on exactly how this works. So there's been a battle going on between water and fire, if you did not know. And that's just held in the symbolism. Okay, so the next level of this is that now how you know that I'm also giving you some knowledge is because, as I told you before, Marduk's actual number was 50. Okay, and I told you how 50 was even a lot of these Sumerian gods, Inanna, etc., are actually embodied into people on this dimension because there's someone that is carrying out. It's not there's just someone. Even one side of Freemasonry is actually dedicated. If you don't want to get into the whole business side and you're looking for more of the spiritual side or the occultist side, there's a side of Freemasonry that is dedicated directly towards that. And if a person gets onto that side, then they start trying to get them to embody themselves with these Anunnaki energies, and that's what the OTO has been doing since the beginning. So what you have is, or since the beginning of their inception, so you have this Marduk who's 50. Now, they tend to like to use melanin-dominant people, and the big reason for that is because they hold a lot of the energy of the sun, but there is also a melanin recessive side also. But if you notice, this Marduk is 50, who's Canaan. Look at the series today out called Power, right? A lot of people know about Power and about this enigmatic series going on HBO. But what is 50, who's 50 Cent, 50's name on Power? Canaan, okay? And this is, you can keep going more and more with this, but I'm just getting you to see something very clearly about how the symbolism works. So, if you go on, you'll find that right now, that basically what's happening is I also coined this term called Illuminati juicing, because what it refers to is that you have these two sides of the spectrum, which we're calling black and white, which don't represent actually the true core of what black and white is, because neither of them have it. And then there's a spectrum here, which is a frequency spectrum. So we can just say, you know, for kicks, 2 hertz all the way to 20 hertz, right? And so in this, let's say, for instance, this is supposed to be the black one and this is supposed to be the white one. You would need to squeeze these two energies in order to allow that which comes in between to keep cycling and circulating the energy. This is more of thermodynamics. This is more of straight mechanics versus just occultism. But anyway, when they can get someone in the reality to say, I'm white, and someone in the reality to say, well, I'm black, and then they cause the conflict between those two forces, then they can cause this exertion of energy, which I'm calling juicing. Okay? Now, since there's a lot more energy on the dimension than normal because of this solar eclipse and because of a lot of charged humans, you're going to see in this next upcoming to the full moon a lot of things going on, but you must stay your course. And I'm going to explain that here in just a minute, but I need to speed through this because it needs to be only 20 minutes. So, as I keep going with this, now you need to understand that this Hurricane Harvey scenario that's actually happening right now is now that same thing like Hurricane Katrina, where you're going to find that there's going to be an extreme race car played. I had sourced some stuff on my Facebook last night and made some comments on it just so people can see how it's going to start warming up. And it's going to start warming up in a way that basically a lot of black people are drowning and dying, and the government doesn't care and is actually going to leave them there to die. Now, is that true? Probably. In fact, in this time, we have to understand that. And have you ever seen anyone here on the planet just stay here forever? In fact, if you had to stay here in what it is right now forever, would you really want that? Let's just face it. We're all going to be leaving here at some point in time. It's best for us to focus on what's going to happen after that. And I'm here to tell you that it's actually amazingly great what goes on beyond this body, as long as you have yourself in tune properly and as long as you're aware of what's going on with your all-knowing. But if you've been playing around in these matrices with these religions and this false knowledge, etc., and you don't even know who you are or what you are, then you're going to be extremely disorientated when you come out of your body, and much more dominant energies are going to exert their control over you through your own memories of what you think God is and what you think afterlife is supposed to be really about. So now if you look at this in Hurricane Harvey, when you look at the occult reference to the word har, okay? Now this word har, we only need to look no further than the old High Germanic, because this perpetration of the Godhead and the issues that are going on with God right now are coming from the Germanic tribes, because the word God as itself comes from the word Gud. So God is Gud, and Gud is the German king. Okay, so that is actually the term for the German king. Go look it up yourself. So when a person says, oh, I serve God, what they're really saying is I serve the German king. Okay, and this has been going on forever, that people have been using that word since they have probably about a second grade education on etymology in English and grammatics and what it really means. So what you have then is you have this Germanic scenario going on of the High Norse, and they're doing a har. Now, har, if you look it up in etymology, har or her in high Germanic actually means August, okay, and it also means holy. Okay, now, I mean, again, the prophecy or common sense. I mean, how is it harvest, or how is the harvest or the har actually in the same month as what it means in High German, High Norse? You can't make this stuff up. So again, now that you have this going on in August, you know that there is some kind of harvesting going on. And that's why I was telling you, like, we already know now what kind of harvesting is going on. So if you look deeper into this, though, you'll find that this harvest actually centers around, and I can't erase my board too much because this is a crazy marker I'm using, but you'll find that in this underlying knowledge information, what's actually being said. And what's being said is that in this unholy harvest, Christians are actually being left behind by their pastors and being left to drown. And let me show you why this is in the occultism. Because, see, when they send this stuff across CNN, they're actually speaking to master masons and occultists all around the world who know the codes behind all of this stuff. That's where they get their news from, but they read it in a different way. The north, east, west, south, not north, east, south, west. They read it in a different way. So they know how to move the codes around to know what's going on. So it's like their broadcasting channel. And in their broadcasting channel, what they're saying is that, hey, this is an unholy harvest. Let's go ahead and send the frequency out for these pastors. Joel Osteen closing his church. You know, where's Steve Harvey with all the suits and all of that, and all the Christian, you got black people singing "Wade in the Water," and then just all of that whole helpless Christian scenario that has been plaguing the world. Okay, so you have that going on. And then on top of that, what you have is you have obviously the racial card being played, which is the magnitude of it. In that basically, and how that's going to play out is that, oh, black people have been left to die. And now that's going to ride all the way into the full moon. And many people are going to exert all of their energy into that. They're not going to learn from it. They're going to react to it. And then they're not going to realize what they need to do about it. They're just going to complain. And they're not going to realize that you need to become sovereign. You need to be working on your sovereignty. So let's keep going with this. So now what you'll also find is burnt out stars. Like, see, this is another level of the connection, that it's as above, so below. So in the sky, there are stars, right? And so let's see if we can wipe some of this off, because I need some space here. So in the sky, there are stars, okay? And there has to be an as above version of these stars. As they say, as above, so below. So who's the as below version of the stars? Well, right now, it's the stars in Hollywood, okay? And I told you this market was messy. It's the stars in Hollywood. And now these as below stars are now going to try to suck up some of this energy in their PR stunts. Basically try to get people to change their perceptions about them. Or if they're a burning out star like Sandra Bullock, they're going to try to get their fans to actually remember who they are and to know that they are the loving and the caring, which they're not. Because it's all PR. What they're doing is they're paying the media channels the same amount that they're saying that they're donating, maybe a little bit less. Maybe they'll give them a discount. So Sandra Bullock says, hey, I'm going to donate $1 million to Houston, $1 million to the Houston situation. How much of that money do you actually think is going to go right now to assisting people? None. And then also they're saying the money is actually going to be used to rebuild Houston. So that means after the fact, nothing actually that needs to be done right now. So this is some deep stuff, because what you're really seeing is you're seeing that these people will actually pay to put themselves back into favor, and the media channel accepts and takes this money because they understand the entire game. Okay, so that's one level, another level of it. So we're coming to the conclusion here. So now, what is all this saying? Because at the end of the day, this is not just something that is happening because it's all being conducted by, let's say, the government. It's actually something that's going on with the energy of the planet. And when the energy of the planet is attempting to communicate with us, what it's saying is that, hey, get your boat together, meaning get your ship, get your body together, and actually head to high ground. And when you're there, then you won't have to worry about what's going on in the lower areas that will be flooding. That's all that's basically being said. But it's a major statement, especially for those that are already realizing that they need to get to sovereignty. They need to work on becoming a conscious entrepreneur. They need to be working on actually getting some real level of knowledge and intelligence, and pretty much coming to the acceptance that everything that's been said and told to people is basically a lie. So give me one quick second. Let me just reboot my camera just so I don't run out of film here. All right, that was a good idea because I was just about to run out. Let me check this one. All right, it's still working. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that in closing down here is that just remember, again, we're coming into this full moon cycle. So we should realize also now there's something like where there's darkness, there's always going to be light. There's always going to be, when you see a large amount of energy move one way, there's going to be equal amount of energy going the other way. And most people don't tap into that energy. They just ride with the current, and then pretty soon they bottom out. But you have to realize that while all this is happening, if you store up your energy, you start storing up your energy because you already know what's going on, because you learn, you're in the know, then what happens is as this continues to progress and we're getting towards this full moon, if you're saving your power, then you have this massive harvest for yourself. You have the actual energy to fuel your projection. And also remember, there's no kind of sequence that actually needs to be put into place for you to go from where you are right now to maybe the most known person in the world, maybe the most or a billionaire, any kind of quantum leap. There's no sequence. Like, it's all really what people call chance, but it's not really related to chance. It's related to energetic signature, energetic potential. So it's very important to realize that as we have this energetic potential within us, if it's getting milked from us and then it goes into something else's coffers, then that it's lost. But if you keep it and you realize what's going on, when harvest time comes, all your projections, your focus actually has more power to manifest that focus and that vision. And that's how it really works. So some closing thoughts here is also to closing thoughts and get yourself together. Like, at this point, you have to really see, like, what we've launched is we've launched something that if you're having problems with the whole financial thing and figuring it out, you can get some assistance with that right now, what we call open source wealth. Those links are in the description. If this doesn't make any sense to you and it seems so far-fetched, it seems like I'm reaching and grabbing, which I don't have time to do if you know anything about me. If it's just blowing over your head, that means that you need to actually learn something. So we have the university for that. We have step-by-step courses of how you progressively come into the realization of what words mean and what's really going on in reality. Don't just assume that everyone around is just dumb and that nobody knows more than you. That's a part of the ego or the ego. And when you have that, then it's very difficult for you to pierce through the higher levels because you feel like you know everything, but you don't. So what happens is you got to learn something. You have to have mentors to teach you something. Every single thing that is around you has been conducted that same way, meaning learning languages, learning how to tie your shoes. All those things came from mentors or people who were willing to teach you. So never stop learning. So those are the two things. If you're looking at this on YouTube, definitely hit the subscribe button. I wanted to say Wholeness and Balanced Vibrations. Again, this is an amazing time that we're living in because before, if you could think of 100 years ago, people were oblivious to that this was going on, but the same thing was being perpetrated on them, from all of the world wars to all the skirmishes. And the true change is going to come in when we change ourselves into the realization of exactly what's going on, and we move from the level of neophytes just wanting to quarrel all the time to adepts or adults ready to take care of the situation, because there's absolutely no reason why the conscious community as we know it, which actually makes up thousands of people. Like, I'll even say here, like, I had a sit down at one point with Giselle Bunchkin here in Costa Rica because she lives here. We're talking about people with millions of dollars. Where are they really at? And I'm not saying, again, anything negative or positive about these people, but we need to understand that we don't need to be counting on angels. We don't need to be counting on gods. We need to be counting on something greater, which is us. So that's what I got to say for today. Have a great time. I'll be with you soon.